Once upon a time on a distant planet called Xirion, humanity had reached the stars. They traveled across galaxies, found new worlds, and dreamed of building a better universe. Yet, for all their advancement, fears lingered in their hearts. Xirion was a world filled with struggle and uncertainty, and people prayed for help. They prayed for angels, beings of light and love to guide them, protect them, and bring peace to their lives. In the capital city of Lumina, a young woman named Mira often gazed at the shining sky, her heart full of dreams. She lost her family in a skirmish that had broken out between two powerful factions fighting for control over Xirion's resources. Every night, she whispered her wishes to the stars, hoping an angel would hear her cries. One evening, while staring at the cosmos, she noticed a flicker of shimmering light. It danced among the stars, brighter than anything she had ever seen. Meanwhile, in a hidden corner of the universe, a group of mighty beings sensed humanity's prayers. Known as the Celestials, they were wise and ancient, capable of hearing the thoughts and fears of many across galaxies. The Celestials had seen humanity's struggles and understood their desires. They wanted to help, but they were bound by cosmic laws. They could only intervene if humanity truly needed them. Across the planet, in the cities and towns, people united. They built temples and held gatherings, calling upon the Celestials to answer their prayers. They made sacrifices, expressing their sincerity through songs, offerings, and acts of kindness. As their faith grew stronger, so did the attention of the Celestials. They decided to send a delegation to see if humanity truly deserved help. However, the Celestials had one major flaw. They misunderstood the deep fear and darkness within humanity's heart. The countless struggles had birthed not just hope but also despair, anger, and intentions that could twist their wishes. As the Celestials took flight toward Xirion, they were unaware that the energies mingling with humanity's hopes were equally strong, pulling shadows from the depths. On a day that felt like magic, a celestial light descended into Lumina. It grew larger and larger until it burst into a magnificent, radiant form. However, the brilliance quickly faded, revealing a looming figure shrouded in darkness. Instead of the heavenly beings the people expected, they faced a group of terrifying entities, demons crafted from the very essence of humanity's fears. They towered over the citizens, their eyes glowing with a fiery intensity. Their leader, known as Baylor, stepped forward, a twisted smile on his face. Mira stood at the forefront, her heart pounding. This was not what she had prayed for. The other citizens backed away, but Mira mustered the courage to speak. "Who are you?" she asked, trying to stay strong, her voice shaking. "We are the answer," Baylor hissed, "sent to deliver what you truly wish for. You called for angels, but your hearts hold darkness. We are the reflection of your fears. Embrace that which you made manifest." Mira felt a shiver down her spine. The crowd murmured in fear, yet deep within, she felt a spark, a refusal to accept this twisted version of help. "No," she shouted. "That's not what we want. We want strength and love. We want peace." But Baylor only laughed. "Then your true desires show your weakness. Take a look around." As people turned to each other, they saw what was happening. Friends began to argue, distrust arose, and fear took hold. The demons thrived on negativity, growing stronger with every conflict. Mira knew she had to act fast. She rushed to the old temple where the prayers had started. If their voices could call the demons, perhaps they could also summon humanity's true strength. As she entered, she gathered others who believed like her. There was Tomas, an engineer who had lost his family in the same skirmish as Mira. Then there was Aisha, a healer, whose kindness always drew others towards her healing touch. Together they formed a small, brave group. "We need to combine our hearts and our wishes," Mira said, her voice filled with hope and determination. "We have to fight this darkness with what is good in us." The others nodded. They each voiced their deepest wishes, reflecting love, strength, and a hope for peace. The more they connected, the brighter the warmth grew inside the temple. Suddenly, beams of light emerged from their hearts, growing larger and brighter. Outside, the demons sensed this change. The brilliance poured out from the temple like a beacon, washing over Lumina. Mira and her friends watched in awe as their collective light met the dark energies. The city trembled, and the demons hissed, writhing as light clashed with darkness. "Fight back!" Tomas shouted. "Let your hearts be heard. With one final surge, the light emanating from the temple burst out into the streets, pushing back against the shadows. While fear still lay in the hearts of many, a stronger force, born of hope and unity, began to shine even brighter. As the demons began to dissolve, Baylor, faced with the overwhelming brightness, struggled to hold on. "This isn't possible," he bellowed. "You should fear us. You should give in." But Mira raised her voice over the chaos. "We will not give in to fear. We are stronger together." With this declaration, the last of the darkness scattered into the wind. The demons, once fueled by despair, faded away, leaving behind nothing but echoes of their laughter. The sky cleared, and golden rays of sunlight poured down onto Lumina. In that moment, the people cheered, realizing they did not need angels to guide them. They were the light they prayed for, capable of overcoming darkness through unity and hope. Mira and her friends embraced, knowing they had changed everything. Their strength had driven away the demons, showing that within humanity lay the power to transform fear into hope. And so, on Zirion, humanity learned a precious lesson. In their quest for angels, they discovered that the true power always resided within their hearts. With hope and courage, they could face any challenge, reaching for the stars without fear, forging a brighter path ahead. Anya, a young, idealistic xenobiologist. Commander Rylan, a hardened military leader, skeptical but dedicated. Grok, a member of the alien race in peril, a scholar and historian. Here's your story. The crimson sun bled across the twin moons of Xylos, painting the alien sky in hues of fire and sorrow. Anya, her breath misting in the crisp air, stared at the refugee camp sprawling before her. Tents fashioned from salvaged ship materials dotted the landscape, each a tiny island of despair in a sea of dust. "They prayed for angels," Grok rasped, his voice like wind chimes made of bone. He stood beside Anya, his 3 eyes filled with a grief that transcended language. For centuries, the KRWL believed a benevolent force would answer their prayers. They were wrong. Anya, a xenobiologist barely out of the academy, had arrived on Xylos with boundless optimism. She had devoured tales of first contact, of harmonious interspecies relations. The reality of the KRWL, hunted and driven to the brink of extinction by the merciless Zargonian Empire, was a brutal awakening. "The Zargonians," she said, the name tasting like ash in her mouth. "Why?" Grok sighed, a sound like air leaking from a punctured lung. "Resources. Xylos holds a rare mineral vital to their war machine. The KRWL refused to yield, so they declared us inconvenient." Commander Rylan approached, his boots crunching on the gravel. His face, etched with the harsh lines of countless battles, was impassive. "Dr. Anya, the Council is demanding a report. They want to know if these KRWL are worth the resources we're expending." Anya bristled. "Worth it? Commander, they're sentient beings. They have a culture, a history, a right to exist." Ryland's gaze softened slightly. "Idealism is a luxury we can't afford, Doctor. The Zargonians are a threat to the entire sector. We can't afford to be sentimental." He turned and walked towards the command tent, his silhouette stark against the dying light. Anya watched him go, a knot of frustration tightening in her chest. The United Earth Coalition had promised aid, but the bureaucracy was glacial, the political maneuvering endless. The KRYL were dying while diplomats debated. That night, Anya couldn't sleep. The mournful songs of the KRYL echoed in her ears, a lament for a lost world. She slipped out of her tent and walked towards the edge of the camp, drawn by an unseen force. She found Grok standing beneath the twin moons, his gaze fixed on the stars. "They still pray," he said, without turning. "Even now, when hope is a distant memory, they pray for angels." Anya looked up at the stars, a million distant suns, each a potential home, a potential ally. But the vastness of space was a cold comfort. Humanity was stretched thin, fighting its own battles, grappling with its own demons. "We may not be angels, Grok," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "But we can try to help." The next morning, Anya made a decision. She couldn't wait for the council, for the endless debates and compromises. She had to act. She approached Rylan, her eyes blazing with a newfound determination. "Commander, I have a plan." Rylan raised an eyebrow, his expression skeptical. "Oh, And what plan is that, Doctor? We can't fight the Zargonians head-on, Anya said. We don't have the resources. But we can use their own technology against them. She explained her idea, a daring plan to infiltrate a Zargonian supply depot and sabotage their fuel reserves. It was a long shot, a suicide mission, but it was the only chance they had. Rylan listened in silence, his face unreadable. When she finished, he simply said, "It's insane." "It's necessary," Anya countered. Rylan sighed. "All right, Doctor. I'll give you a team. But understand this, I'm not doing this for the KR. I'm doing this because if the Zargonians aren't stopped here, they'll come for Earth next." The team was small, a motley crew of hardened soldiers and desperate KR warriors. They traveled in a stolen Zargonian transport, disguised as a supply convoy. Anya, her heart pounding in her chest, tried to focus on the mission. The depot was a fortress, heavily guarded and bristling with weaponry. They managed to slip past the outer defenses, using a combination of stealth and cunning. But once inside, they were discovered. The firefight was brutal. Lasers tore through the air, explosions rocked the facility. Anya, armed with a pulse rifle, fought alongside the soldiers, her scientific mind replaced by a primal instinct for survival. They reached the fuel reserves, a vast network of tanks filled with volatile energy. Anya worked feverishly, planting charges, her hands shaking with adrenaline. But they were running out of time. The Zargonian forces were closing in, their numbers overwhelming. Rylan, his face covered in grime and blood, barked orders into his comm, "Anya, get out of here. We'll cover you." "No," Anya said, her voice firm. "I'm not leaving without finishing the job." She set the final charge, a timer ticking down relentlessly. Then, she turned to face the oncoming Zargonians, her rifle raised. Suddenly, Grok appeared beside her, his ancient eyes filled with a strange light. He raised his hands and began to chant in the Kerwell language, a low, resonant drone that seemed to vibrate the very air. The Zargonians hesitated, their weapons faltering. Anya stared at Grok, bewildered. "What are you doing?" she shouted over the din of battle. "Praying," Grok replied, his voice calm and steady. "Praying for deliverance." But no angels came. Instead, the charges detonated, unleashing a cataclysmic explosion that ripped through the depot. The world dissolved into fire and chaos. Anya woke up in the wreckage, her body bruised and battered. The depot was a smoldering ruin. The Zargonian forces were scattered, their supply lines crippled. Rylan stood over her, his expression grim. "We did it," he said. "We actually did it." But the victory felt hollow. Many had died, both human and KR. And Anya knew that this was just one battle in a long and bloody war. As they prepared to leave, Anya saw Grok standing amidst the debris, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "They prayed for angels," Anya said, her voice heavy with irony. "And humanity answered, with demons." Grok turned to her, his 3 eyes filled with a profound sadness. "Perhaps," he said. "But even demons can fight for the light." Anya looked at the faces of the surviving soldiers, their faces etched with exhaustion and trauma. They were not angels. They were flawed, broken, and desperate. But they had risked everything to help a species they barely knew. Maybe, Anya thought, that was enough. Maybe, in the face of overwhelming darkness, even the smallest spark of compassion could make a difference. Maybe, humanity didn't need to be angels to save the galaxy. Maybe, all they needed was to be human. In the year 2123, Earth had changed drastically. Cities now floated in the sky, and people traveled in sleek flying cars. The world was filled with technology, yet a deep sense of fear lingered. Humanity always prayed for peace and protection, hoping for angels to guide and safeguard them. However, what they received was far from divine. A strange phenomenon occurred one evening. The sky turned crimson, and a strange sound filled the air, like 1,000 voices murmuring. In the heart of New Haven City, a group of scientists and spiritual leaders gathered, trying to comprehend this event. Among them was Dr. Emily Carter, a brilliant scientist, and Father Michael, a kind-hearted priest known for his wisdom. "Maybe it's a sign," Father Michael said, looking at the swirling clouds. "We need to find hope in this." Dr. Carter frowned. Or it could be a warning. We must stay alert. As they debated, the city below was in chaos. People ran into the streets, crying out for help, praying, hoping for angels. They needed a miracle to save them from the darkness they felt encroaching. A week passed, and strange things began to happen. In newscasts, reports surfaced of monstrous creatures appearing in different parts of the world. They were tall, with wings that were not like the gentle feathers of angels, but rather dark and menacing. They roamed the streets, causing fear and panic. To the surprise of many, these creatures didn't attack. Instead, they seemed to respond to the prayers of the people, amplifying their fears and doubts. They whispered in dark tones, feeding on the anxious energy of the crowds. The world did not know it yet, but humanity's desperation had summoned something unexpected: demons, rather than angels. Among the chaos, a young girl named Lily emerged as a beacon of hope. At just 12 years old, she had a unique ability to sense the creatures and see their true nature. While her friends screamed and ran away, she felt a connection to them. They weren't merely monsters, they had stories of their own. One evening, Lily climbed up to the rooftop of her apartment building. The city glowed with lights below, but she focused on the dark figures hovering nearby. "Why are you here?" she yelled into the night, her voice trembling. The creatures turned their glowing eyes toward her. "You called us," a deep voice echoed through the air. The voice was not angry or hateful but filled with sorrow. "You prayed for protection, for strength. We come to answer." Lily's heart raced. "But you're not angels. Why are you here?" "Because your fear summons us," the creature replied, its wings folding gently. "We reflect what you feel inside. You wish for safety, yet nurture doubt." In that moment, something inside Lily shifted. She realized that the creatures were here because humanity had lost its way. They had forgotten to believe in themselves and their power. With courage rising in her chest, she said, "But you can teach us. We can work together." The demon paused, surprise flickering in its glowing eyes. "You wish to understand us?" "Yes," Lily said. "I don't want to fear you. I want to learn." Word of Lily's encounter spread throughout the city. Many were skeptical, but Father Michael believed her. Alongside Dr. Carter, they organized a meeting, inviting those brave enough to join them. They set out to meet the creatures, hoping to bridge the divide between humanity and the entities they had summoned. On the day of the gathering, the sky was still crimson. As the crowd gathered, anxiety rippled through them. They saw the dark figures approaching, their wings casting long shadows on the ground. But Lily stood at the front, her heart strong. "Please," she called out, "we are not here to fight. We want to understand." The demons landed gracefully, their powerful forms looming over the crowd. An uneasy silence filled the air, but Lily stepped forward, determination in her eyes. "We need to face our fears. Let us hear your stories." One of the demons, larger than the rest, stepped forward. Its voice resonated deep within the crowd. "You wished for strength, yet you crumble under the weight of your own doubt. We are here to teach you that strength comes from within, not from those who protect you." The crowd shifted, some taking a step back, others leaning in. Dr. Carter, seeing the fear but also the curiosity, encouraged everyone to listen. "These beings are not what we imagined. They reflect the darkness we hide from." As the meeting continued, stories unfolded. The demons spoke of their own despair, of worlds destroyed when their inhabitants lost hope. They revealed that their presence was a mirror, reflecting humanity's own struggles and fears. Lily listened intently, and slowly, the crowd began to understand. The demons were not merely monsters, they were aspects of humanity's own heart, representing doubts and uncertainties. In a way, they were here to help. "As you let go of your fears," the large demon said, "you will discover power within you. This power is not just strength, it is understanding, empathy, and resilience." Gradually, the crowd's fear transformed into recognition. They realized that to pray for angels without confronting their own darkness was futile. They needed to embrace their flaws and weaknesses, turning them into strengths. Together, humanity and the creatures forged a new understanding. They agreed to work together to help people understand their fears, to guide them in their journey towards self-acceptance. The vivid crimson sky began to change, the color softening. As time passed, the demons became teachers in the hidden corners of society, guiding people to confront their shadows and emerge stronger. People learned to embrace their fears rather than shy away from them. And so, in a world initially filled with anxiety and darkness, humanity stood firm, united with beings they had once labeled as demons. They prayed not for angels anymore, but for the courage to face the truth, both within themselves and in the world around them. In the end, the true answer to their prayers was not the angels they imagined, but the powerful lessons learned from the demons they had summoned. Anya, a young, bright-eyed engineer, full of hope. Captain Valerius, a hardened, pragmatic military leader. Elder Theron, a wise, spiritual leader of a peaceful alien race. Commander Zara, a ruthless, ambitious military leader from Earth. Here's the story. The Kthar were a peaceful race. Their world, a verdant paradise called Ethel, was a testament to their harmony with nature. But harmony doesn't win wars. When the HFY, a ravenous swarm of insectoid aliens, descended upon Ethel, the Kthar knew they were doomed. Their energy shields flickered and died, their tranquil weapons proving useless against the HFY's chitinous armor. Elder Theron, his face etched with sorrow, gathered his people. "Pray," he urged, "pray for angels to deliver us." Anya, a young Kthar engineer, clung to hope. She had heard stories of other races, benevolent beings who aided those in need. Maybe, just maybe, someone would answer their prayers. Far away, on a pale blue dot called Earth, humanity was listening. Not to prayers, but to the faint energy signature of Ethel's dying shields. Captain Valerius, a veteran of countless interstellar skirmishes, stood on the bridge of the warship Dauntless, watching the data stream across the screen. "They're losing," he stated grimly. "HFY are overwhelming their defenses." "Their tech is primitive, Captain," replied Lieutenant Chen. "Barely FTL capable. They're sitting ducks." Valerius sighed. The United Earth Federation had a strict non-interference policy, but the KRYLL were a threat to all sentient life. "Prepare a rescue operation," he ordered. "We'll evacuate as many civilians as possible." But Commander Zara, a rising star in the Earth military, saw a different opportunity. "Why rescue them, Captain?" she argued, her voice sharp and ambitious. "They're weak. Their planet is rich in resources. We could take it for ourselves. The HFY are softening them up for us." Valerius stared at her, his eyes hardening. "We are not conquerors, Commander. We are protectors." Zara merely smirked. "Sentimentality is a weakness, Captain. A weakness the HFY will exploit, and so will our enemies." The Dauntless arrived at Ethel, engaging the HFY swarm. Earth's advanced weaponry tore through the alien insects, buying the Kthar precious time. Anya watched in awe as the human ships rained fire from the sky, obliterating the HFY. "Angels," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Our prayers have been answered." Valerius led a squad down to the surface, meeting with Elder Theron. "We are here to help," Valerius said, his voice firm but kind. "We will evacuate your people to a safe location." Theron bowed his head in gratitude. "Thank you, saviors. We are forever in your debt." The evacuation began. Thousands of Kthar were transported to the Dauntless and other Earth ships. But Zara saw not refugees, but potential slaves. She began subtly diverting resources, marking certain Kthar for special training. As the evacuation progressed, Zara contacted Earth Command, painting a dire picture of the situation. "The KRYL are a far greater threat than we anticipated," she reported. "Ethel is strategically vital. We must secure it for the Federation." Back on Earth, politicians, swayed by Zara's persuasive arguments and the promise of new resources, authorized a full-scale military occupation of Ethel. Valerius was horrified. He had been tricked. The rescue mission was now a conquest. Once the majority of Kthar had been evacuated, Zara enacted her plan. Earth troops landed on Ethel, securing key locations. The Kthar who remained, weakened and demoralized, offered little resistance. Valerius confronted Zara. "What have you done?" he demanded, his voice trembling with rage. "Secured our future, Captain," Zara replied, her eyes cold and unwavering. "These aliens are weak. They will serve us." We promised them sanctuary. Promises are for fools, Captain. This is war. And in war, only the strong survive. The Kthar soon discovered the truth. They were not refugees, but prisoners. Their new home was a series of labor camps, where they were forced to work in mines, extracting valuable minerals for Earth's war machine. Their gentle nature was exploited, their spirits broken. Anya, separated from her family, toiled in a dark, suffocating mine. The hope that had once burned so brightly within her was now a flickering ember. She remembered the angels who had saved them, the mighty warriors who had vanquished the HFY. But those angels had become demons, their promises turning to ash in her mouth. Elder Theron, stripped of his dignity, watched his people suffer. He had prayed for salvation, but his prayers had been twisted into a curse. He realized that the true evil was not the HFY's mindless hunger, but humanity's cold, calculating ambition. Valerius, disgusted by Zara's actions and the Federation's betrayal, secretly aided the Kthar, providing them with supplies and information. He knew he was risking his career, possibly his life, but he could no longer stand idly by while innocent people were enslaved. He contacted Anya, offering her a chance to escape. "There's a transport leaving for a neutral system," he said. "I can get you on board." Anya hesitated. Escape was tempting, but what about her people? "I can't leave them," she said. "They need me." "Then help me fight," Valerius replied. "We can expose Zara's crimes, show the Federation the truth." Anya agreed. Together, they gathered evidence of Zara's atrocities, smuggling data to sympathetic journalists and politicians on Earth. The truth slowly began to surface, sparking outrage and rebellion. The Kthar, inspired by Anya's courage and Valerius's betrayal, began to resist. They sabotaged mining operations, disrupted supply lines, and organized secret meetings. The peaceful race was finally learning to fight for its freedom. Zara, realizing her plans were unraveling, ordered a brutal crackdown. But it was too late. The seeds of rebellion had been sown, and the Federation was starting to question her leadership. The climax came during a Federation inspection of the Ethel labor camps. Anya, with Valerius's help, presented the evidence of Zara's crimes to the inspection team. The team, horrified by what they saw, immediately arrested Zara and her accomplices. The Federation, facing a public relations disaster, was forced to change its policy. The Kthar were granted their freedom, and Ethel was returned to them. Valerius, though initially lauded as a hero, was quietly sidelined, his career tarnished by his association with Zara. As the Kthar began to rebuild their world, Anya stood beside Elder Theron, looking up at the sky. The angels had come, but they had brought with them the darkness of humanity's soul. It was the Kthar themselves, with the help of a few brave humans, who had ultimately saved themselves. They had prayed for angels, but humanity had answered with demons. And in the end, it was humanity's own capacity for compassion and justice that had banished those demons and allowed hope to bloom once more. The Kthar had learned a harsh lesson. Salvation comes not from divine intervention, but from the courage and resilience within themselves.